Hello everybody, can we see and hear me? That is, I suppose, the first thing that we should be checking as we are now all live. Hope you've all had a lovely Sunday. Weather's quite nice, which is a shame considering we can't really enjoy it. I hope at least somebody out there has been able to get something out of the day. I have everything that I need. I've got a nice drink. I have hopped myself up on anti-allergy drugs, which anyone that saw my last live stream I'm sure will appreciate. We got the camera all set up, and we even have some new and fancy features. I'm really not great at the whole live stream bit, but I am trying to get a little bit better. So we've got some things here I can do in the software, which is all, I mean, probably incredibly basic to most people that watch live stream stuff. Like I could put a logo in the corner. Hang on a second. There it is. I can even, if I so desire, now put up a browser as well. But which I know the first video that I did was actually all that. So I've now worked out how to kind of combine everything, get everything working, and all that jazz. And it's all rather interesting. It's all rather spiffing, and it's kind of funny because I obviously had a background in sort of film and TV, and when I trained, I did do a little bit of live TV training, but that I never did any live TV work in my career ever. I never done professional live TV work, but now I feel like some of my training was of some use. Except that this software did not exist when I was doing all of my training. This is it is amazing. Oh yes, you'll have audio on the left ear only. Now let me just see. I know exactly why that is, and let me just see if I can fix that easily enough. Um, hang on a second. There we go. Okay, that should have improved the audio, and that should have it in both ears. So, okay, guys, is that? Yep, great. That's good to know. The reason for that, by the way, is very simple. Tonight we're actually, Mike, I'm learning. Every day is a school day for me. Are we loud enough? I can easily make it a bit loud as well. So there we go. And I can turn the volume up too. These are things, some of these things. Okay, so I can make myself a little bit louder too. And that should have made me a little bit louder. How's about that? So, okay. So, all right. Good evening, everybody. Oh, blimey, we've got people from all over the place. We got people from Florida. We've got people from Kandahar. Where is Kandahar? I would love to know where Kandahar is. But yeah, no, the reason everything was coming in left it only was because I'm on a wireless mic. I've just been doing a little bit of recording. I am trying to sort some stuff out with my 7 Series, which has been a little bit troublesome. Hey, Trev from Laurie's Mechanical Marvels. Oh, they've shared it on their Discord. So that's a big shout out to everyone there. If there's anyone watching that hasn't heard of those guys, then please do check them out. If you want the sort of more unusual mechanized creations, then Laurie's Mechanical Marvels, all the team there are great guys. But in terms of my own mechanical creations, I've been trying to sort out stuff with the 7 Series, which has had a few problems. It was wobbling at about 60, 70 mile an hour. That was an easy fix because that was just a warm bushing, so that's already been done. Slightly more worrying was a misfire, which we're looking into. Have a suspicion it's coil packs because I have a pretty chunky history folder of stuff for the car here, and the previous owner had a misfire and he replaced one of the 12 coil packs, and then didn't do the others. So I suspect he probably fixed his problem for a short period, and then all the other coil packs are all the same age, so they're probably all starting to fail. But yeah, the other big problem is that I have a coolant leak, which I only found out a few months into ownership, so a little bit too late to have a word with the guy that sold me the car, and I've got a kit from the USA from a company called Bimafix, which is going to hopefully help sort that out. In fact, it's quite a nice kit. I really like this. It's a 2007 series. I've just been asked 760 Li. This is the big V12, and they have a problem in common with the V8s of the time. So the N62 engines, I believe they're termed, which is the 4.4, the 4.8 litre. Christopher Richardson's just said, don't know why, but you remind me of a motor journalist called Jason Dawes. Is it Jason Dawes? I believe you're thinking of the guy who is in the first series of new Top Gear. And that was, yeah, I think he replaced, he was there instead of James May, because James May was actually on old Top Gear. If you look on YouTube, you'll find him on old Top Gear, and you'll find, James May on there, but apparently James May wasn't sure whether new Top Gear was going to work, so he waited, so he wasn't there until Series 2. If any of you want to laugh, go back and watch something from the first of the, even like the couple of series of new Top Gear, because the studio looks tragic. I mean, it's like they tried to get some friends to kind of to fill the place out, because there's like half a dozen people in the studio audience. The place feels empty, absolutely empty. Peter Hart, would I consider taking a local fan out in an exotic press car, as and when I get one, and obviously once the virus stuff has passed? I mean, I would. Obviously, I take some cautions about these things, the just general sensible stuff, but I've said before, and I will happily say again, that I think the greatest joy of cars is sharing them. When it comes to press cars, I don't always have a lot of time with them, particularly the more exotic ones. So typically, say the Ferraris, and I was due to have a Bentley, that got cancelled, and they usually get for a weekend. So you kind of pick it up Friday, return it Monday, and when you've got to drive and do all sorts of stuff, there's not a lot of time spare. Other cars, when you get Jags, stuff like that, Kias and things, I get this for a week. The standard press thing is a week. I'm trying to get an R8 for a little bit like a semi-long-term thing, like a month, but that's kind of tricky. Okay, let's answer a few of the questions here. $5,000 MX-5 or Z4 2.5? That's actually a really difficult question. I think in my present series, I would probably go for a Z4, just because I've got the S2000. I've had the S2000 for a bit, and the Z4 offers a completely different character. How do I feel about the new Top Gear? I watched a couple of very recent episodes, and I think the new trio have finally started to gel. I'm still amazed at the choice of presenters to go alongside Chris Harris. Chris himself, I think, is an excellent motoring journalist, and I just wasn't sure why they decided to have two guys with very strong northern accents present an internationally broadcast motoring program. That just seemed like an odd choice, and they have very little in the way of sort of traditional motoring background or anything like that. So, and I'm not even sure they're big car fans, so it all seemed a little bit odd, but it takes a while. It takes a while. Have I seen a piston heads that XE chassis number 1 is for sale? No, I haven't. But why don't we have a look? Why don't we have a look? If I can actually make this work. Da-da! Okay, let's see if we can find it, shall we? So that'll be a Lotus, and that'll be an XE. I think somebody said that it was orange. So it's going to be an XE S1, of course, and there will not be many of those for sale. Oh, come on. My internet's not very good. Probably doesn't help that I'm live streaming and trying to do all this at the same time, so it's probably knackered my internet a little bit. And the piston is also... Oh, 4 cars. Let's see if we can find that, shall we? Stunning low mileage. Yeah, that's not it. That's not it. Oh, here we go. So it's at Lotus Silverstone, and they have had some really interesting, cool cars in. The price is actually much more reasonable than I thought it would be. Some of these Series 1 XEs just go for like obscene money. Yeah. Not a great description, is it? It's not the most extensive description. of all things. But let's have a look at some pictures. I'm just changing how my thing looks. And Pistons is useless for putting up big pictures. I mean, it looks, I guess if you didn't know, there'd be nothing to tell you that it was a particularly unusual Exige. Nice carbon airbox here. Lovely, lovely. Okay, so let's carry on with the questions. I'm bigger again. Okay, so what do we got here? So yeah, we got people from everywhere. Oh, especially hello to people watching from Australia, because it's 3 a.m. or something over there. So dedication. Audi RS3 or Lotus Elise 250 Cup, they are such wildly different cars that I'm not sure they can be compared. Arden VXR, turn your sound up then if you think I'm too quiet, because definitely I can tell you I'm looking at the levels and they're pretty decent. I will turn the volume up just a touch more for people. So apologies if anyone else has adjusted already, but there you go. I don't want to put it any higher than that because it's already in the yellow for me. So, what have we got? I know, probably. Okay, so most expensive repair bill I've ever had on a car. That's a good one. That is a very good one, and I'm trying to think. I think it was my Elise. Had Series 2 Elise 111R, so it's the first one with a Toyota engine. That was the 1.8 turbo Toyota engine. Really nice car. I was using it in winter, and then give me 2 seconds, everybody, because there is somebody at the door, so I have to go and answer that, which is very handy. Ta-da! There we go. Sorry about that interruption, everybody. Yeah, so I had an Elise, and I was using it through winter, and everything seemed fine. The car was really nice. The previous owner had looked after it, and he. But one thing he hadn't done is he hadn't put any new front tyres on. Now, they still have plenty of tread on, but they were about 7 years old. Everything was fine till the second week in November. I was driving down a country road, heading off to a random car meet in the middle of November. And yeah, driving along, and went to turn, and nothing. Car would not turn. So that was not great. That was not great at all. So I decided to store the car over winter. I then got a call. So it was in my dad's shed. He had some space, and I just said, "Dad, can I store the car for a couple of months, please? I'm going to put some tyres on it in the spring and all that, because I wouldn't really want to use the car in winter anyway." And I get a phone call from him about 2 weeks later saying, "By the way, your car is leaking all over my shed. Come and get it." So I went and got it, and the radiator had gone. So on those cars, aluminium radiator, and it had plastic end caps, and they just split apart. So I had to get that sorted. Sent it to Hangar 111, who are a Lotus specialist. So I was like, okay, can you do the radiator, which was like a £400-500 part, so it's not hideous. Can you put new front tyres on? Again, not too expensive. Can you do an alignment? And then the thing was, to get to the radiator, obviously you need to take the front clam off, which isn't too much labour, but then loads of clips break, and then things start adding up. And then they were like, oh, well, we should probably replace all of these clips. And then silly stuff like the car had aftermarket xenon headlights, and the ballast hadn't even been properly secured. Like loads and loads and loads and loads of little things all added up, and it was about £2,000 bill. So I was hoping for like £700-800. Yeah, it wound up being £2,000. I went through it all, and I thought it was fine and decent and everything, but yeah, no, that was not fun. So that was the story of the most expensive bill that I had. Have I ever fancied an old school classic, MGB, Spitfire, early Escort, something like that? I kind of enjoyed driving some of those. I tell you, the older car that I've enjoyed the most was the Datsun 240Z. but that was so heavily modified, I'm not sure you could really call it like a legitimate classic. Same again, there's a review coming out in about a month of a 2000 Mini. So it's still like a classic Mini, but I guess for a lot of people, you know, that's sort of too modern or whatever. But, you know, it's very, very nice. Okay, what's my view on buying a high mileage car, and does it matter on the car? If so, what cars would I have? What cars would I, you know, happily buy with high mileage, and what cars would I avoid? To be honest, I kind of like high mileage cars. Like, I always used to just basically buy the cheapest, highest mileage example of whatever it was that I wanted. The reasoning being that that was usually the only example I could afford. And as long as the car had been properly cared for and properly maintained, I generally didn't have any bad luck with those vehicles. I had a couple of BMWs with well over 100,000 miles on them. Didn't really have any trouble with them at all. I mean, in fairness, the only car I ever bought new, which was my Lotus, gave me more trouble than all of my other cars combined. So, you know, I mean, does that say as much about the Lotus as buying new cars in general? Probably. But yeah, I like high mileage cars. To me, the mileage shouldn't really be important. To me, it's the condition, it's the history, stuff like that. And there are certain cars, particularly the more exotic stuff, especially stuff like a Lotus, McLaren, things like that. I would recommend to people to buy them secondhand with some miles on. I would generally avoid cars that have, you know, 5,000 miles in 10 years, because there might be problems lurking that are, you know, pretty serious. Will I feature the 100k plaque in my video? So if you're not aware, when you reach 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, they send you a lovely little silver play button, which apparently takes ages to arrive anyway. Yeah, I might do an unboxing video of that. I don't know. I guess I need to find somewhere in here for it to go. Maybe I'll put it somewhere where you can see it during the live streams and things. Would I buy a McLaren? Ooh, that's an interesting question. I mean, I really like them, and a lot of them are certainly cheap enough, but yeah, I don't know if the McLaren people would want me having one. I really, really don't. I'd probably go for a 650 coupe. Because that's the one that's probably most likely to be affordable. Like, they don't seem to be an awful lot more money than the 12C, and they are quite a bit more car. The 720 I did love, but 720s are likely to be out of my price range for a while. I mean, I say this like I could just go out and buy a 650, which I just can't. Am I likely to do any bike content? No. Yeah. No, I've answered that actually in the previous live stream. So okay, here's an interesting one. What car have I lusted after but never ever see myself having the means to buy? Well, that's always been the Lotus. Well, there's two. The Lotus Esprit Turbo is one, because that's technically been affordable to me for quite some time. I mean, when I bought my Z4M Coupe about 5-6 years ago, for that money, I could have got an Esprit Turbo, the kind of shape that I would have wanted. Or the other one would have been a Lambo Gallardo, because I could have got that when I got my Evora. In both cases, the issue is the running costs. The Lotus possibly even more expensive than the Lamborghini for like normal maintenance. The Lamborghini then obviously a lot more expensive if it breaks. And as the Gallardos I was looking at were early 5-litre cars, they are, yeah, not known as being the most robust. What did I do before YouTube? Good question. Has been addressed in a couple of videos. I was a director of photography for low budget films, short films, feature films, that kind of stuff. All those sorts of things. I do want to talk about that in a little bit, because I have something interesting that I'm doing that I want to talk to people about. But I'll get onto that in a while. What car would I buy my worst enemy? That's an interesting one. I don't know. I really, I really don't. You know, maybe I'm lucky because I kind of find something to love in a lot of cars. I think you'd have to tailor it. I think you'd have to really, really tailor it. Like, you know, like if Laurie and I fell out with each other, I'd buy like a BMW 520d. Because he'd really hate that. A brand new one. Brand spanking new. Because he'd go mad with an auto box in it. He'd go absolutely spare. Like, he'd hate it. He'd absolutely hate it. What kit do I use for filming? I'm filming this on a GH5. Randomly, it's just, it's not the sort of thing that you should normally do these live streams on. But apparently, the internet has run out of cameras. There are no webcams anywhere. you can't get them anymore. So what's my view on Alpinas? Really interesting. I did get in touch with Alpina, and they said we're really sorry, we're a bit busy. So I haven't actually driven one. But they're the sort of car that I never understood when I was younger. But as I get a bit older, I look at some of them and I kind of go, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool. The problem with them is that because people really, really love them, you know, they hold their money really, really well. And I'm sorry, I dropped you all on the floor. I dropped the microphone. Oh, this is part of the filming kit I can show you. So this is a Sennheiser wireless mic kit. So it's kind of different. A lot of guys now use Rode stuff, and I like the Rode stuff. I do have some Rode stuff, but I find the Rode stuff doesn't last, whereas the Sennheiser stuff, you can drop it on the floor like an idiot, like I just did, and it will be fine. Okay. Do I share the same love as the V6 Mondeo as all the guys on Top Gear, because it's famously one of the few... I tell you what, one of the Grand Tour, the third season, I felt really came together, and one of the pieces that I loved the most, in fact, one of the pieces I've enjoyed from Clarkson, Hammond and May in general in the last decade was the piece on the Ford saloon cars, so the Cortinas and onto the Mondeos and stuff like that. I thought it was a really, really nice piece. And one of the cars that they all agree on is the ST200. Now, I'm sure I remember them also all agreeing on the Renault Aventine. That I think I remember them agreeing on. I liked the Mondeo ST220 when I drove it. It was a nice enough car. Rode really well, very comfortable. You know, engine was decent enough, but I just didn't love it. I remember... years ago, I could have had the Mondeo ST220, or I could have had an E46 330 Ci Club Sport, which is what I actually bought. Loved that car, and I just felt. I mean, I kind of have a thing against front-wheel drive cars, if I'm being perfectly honest, and so I just thought, you know what. I just would go with the Beamer. I just would. It doesn't help that the Fords do have things go wrong with them. Not like the Beamers are immune to problems either, of course. But yeah, I prefer the styling of the BM. I think it's aged a lot better than the Mondeo has. I still love the super touring cars of that era, but obviously it's a very, very a different animal entirely. What motoring journalist would I really like to meet? That's an interesting one. I guess Chris, maybe, or maybe Clarkson, James May. I'm not sure. Actually, I'd love to spend some time with Harry Metcalf. I actually saw him at the NEC Classic Motor Show. Was it earlier in the year or even late last year? I can't remember. And yeah, I saw him and I was like, he was there next to his Countach, and I was like, oh, I might go over and say hi to him, but I was like, yeah, he just seemed busy. I mean, so one of the things about the training I had, so I learned at a place called the Metropolitan Film School, which is based at Ealing Studios. So one of the first things that we learned, because it's still a working and active film studios, is that you will see actors and famous directors and people like that on kind of a daily basis. And so one of the first things we learned was just like, yeah, just let them get on with it. You know, they have a job to do, like go and do it. So I'm quite lucky, I guess, the channel being the size it is at the minute, 90 odd K, that I don't really have people stopping me doing stuff. But I can certainly imagine that for people like the size of Shami's channel, a couple of million followers, that sort of stuff, especially the American guys. Yeah, I can very much imagine that by the time you get to that size of channel, that it can be quite difficult doing certain things, and I can understand why they're very protective of where and when they are, and all sorts of that sort of stuff. Okay, a lot of people ask me about $5,000 for a car. My first thought, I guess, I see someone there, Richard has said, play it safe, go boring, and go Japanese. Well, I would play it dangerous and go Japanese. I would go for an Impreza WRX. You're not going to get an STI for that budget, or certainly not an STI that you'd want to have. So yeah, I would, yeah. Ooh, one hot lap, one circuit, one car. What do you choose? I would love to do a lap. I think it would have to be of Donington, and I really would love to try like a proper race car. I mean, like an old school race car, like a 962 or something like that. Although if it's only one lap, I don't know. I don't know if that would be enough, because a 962 I think would just be like over and done with, far too fast. So yeah. Okay, so Rob's asked a question. Rob has a lovely 993 and would like to know how the logistics of filming works, which I suspect is something that you guys are interested in. So it varies from video to video, but for reviews, it follows a pretty similar formula. So I'll speak to the person in advance about the car. I will try and do as little research as I possibly can. It's not through laziness, it's because I don't want my opinions being coloured by those of others. So, I don't go and read old reviews. I deliberately avoid those. It can be troublesome with certain cars, because if you're trying to get specifications for a car, that's the one thing that I will look at. If you're trying to get specs, if it's a relatively new car, then it's pretty easy to do. If it's an older car, not so easy. So yeah, so that's tricky. And yes, I'll do that. Talk with the person in advance, make sure they're happy with how things work, all that kind of jazz. Meet up with them. I'll film the static shots of the car. I'll get in. I will be, all mic'd up, everything like I am now, and I drive. So what you see, my review, you see my first drive of the car. The first sort of, steps that I take, that's kind of what you see. I don't drive the car before I'm on camera. The way I film, I just like to kind of just blurt stuff out. So there's no scripting, nothing like that. Then afterwards, we do some drive-bys, and then generally we go to the pub. That is kind of how that worked. Okie dokie. What else we got? Do all the motoring YouTubers mix? How many others have I met? Good question. Yes, some of us talk to each other. As you can imagine, some of us have the same problems. There are certain things that we do that I think that only other YouTubers sometimes understand. I have spoken to some of them. The guys I speak to quite frequently would be people like Laurie, of course, because he was a big important part of the channel. Steph AB. I'm speaking to Scott at Ratarossa at the minute a lot, because I was supposed to be filming with him, but that had to get cancelled. I'm filming with my buddy. I'm talking to my buddy Jack, who ran a channel called Number 27. It kind of went dormant for a little bit, but he's back now. He went and bought. If you haven't seen it, check it out. He went and bought a what was it? A Ferrari 308. Ferrari 308 on an auction, sight unseen, in the middle of the in the middle of the pandemic. So yeah, that was an interesting purchase. I don't speak all the time with a lot of the bigger YouTubers. Obviously, I was lucky enough to go and meet Tavares when I was out in Florida in February. I haven't really spoken to him since then, to be honest. This is not for any particular reason. That's just I've been kind of busy. On track, what would win? An Elise 250 Cup or a RS3? That is tricky. I suspect the RS3, depending on the track, might actually win, all else being equal, over a lap. But the Elise is going to be a lot more fun, and the Elise is probably going to also last a lot longer, because a standard RS3 is going to chew through absolutely all of its parts. What hot hatch would I own for 15 grand or under? That's a good one. That's a good one because I'm not really much of a hot hatch person. You know what? Actually, no. I'll tell you what I would have. I would have the Impreza hatchback, STI Impreza hatchback, get a JDM one. When the Impreza hatchback came out, I was absolutely mortified, as I think a lot of people were, because I thought, oh my God, you've just taken a brilliant looking car, you've ruined it. You don't even want to call it the Impreza anymore. Like, what have you done? You know, you have one good thing, Subaru, and you've just chucked it in the bin. And I love it. I've really grown to love it. The STI with sort of big arches and everything, like it's a really cool car. Yeah, a bit of a risk, yeah, a bit high maintenance, but I think it's a pretty cool car. Have I ever been tempted to do YouTube stuff that's not cars? Yes, I have. In fact, way back when I started out the channel, the idea was to sort of do all of my passions. So it was going to be cars, it was going to be cameras, and it was going to be movies. Then I very quickly thought, that's a bit of a weird combo, so let's just start off with the cars, and then, you know, cars kind of became the focus. Then I actually did think about a year ago, I even went to the East and actually filmed some stuff. I was going to do a movie channel, movie reviews, because I thought that's something that I know about, that's something that I can do, and, you know, over winter, surely that's easy. All I do is I just sit down and I talk about movies for a bit. You know, I love movies. Then I realised I don't have enough time to watch movies these days, same as I don't generally, when things are normal, I don't have the time to go and watch other YouTubers. It's just not something that any of us have time to do. All the full-time YouTube guys, it's just not something we have time for. And yeah, so I thought, well, I'm also not going to have any time to do another channel. I know that Tim Shmee experimented with doing other channels in the past. That's quite cool. And if anyone wants to see something interesting, go and watch Tim's videos from about 8 years ago, and you'll really see how he as a person has changed over the years. You know, the way he presents, the style of his videos. I find it really interesting. All the YouTubers that I enjoy watching, and I did a lot of this when I started out on YouTube, that I thought, okay, you know, you look at a channel and you look at, say, like, you know, I was looking at, say, Seen Through Glass, and you were like, okay, here's a channel that's got to this size. How did he get there? What did he do? What route did he take? You know, how did he get there? Callum's asked, what sports do I enjoy watching? Am I into motorsports and cars? And do I have the need for anything else? It's not so much a need, it's a time thing. You know, when I'm in America, I love watching sport. I don't know what it is, but I'll watch pretty much anything when I'm in America. Over here, couldn't care less. Love ice hockey. Love it. Absolutely brilliant. American football, not so exciting. Basketball's great. Don't mind the odd bit of baseball either. So that's quite good fun. So yeah, so I do watch. Okay, so Max65 has just mentioned something, which is Pierce Brosnan talking about his Vanquish. Poor old Pierce Brosnan did a live stream the other day, which was watch GoldenEye with him, which I was really excited for because I absolutely love GoldenEye. Brilliant film, maybe the best Bond as far as I'm concerned. And oh, it was awkward. Oh, it was poor Pierce is not cut out for live internet stuff. I feel sorry for the guy. I mean, I can understand because I know a lot of actors hate watching their own work anyway. I mean, number one rule on a film set, do not let the actors see themselves in a monitor. Don't do it. It's awful. Would I ever move to the USA? I'm not sure that I'd make a permanent move to the USA, but I did spend quite a bit of time on Zillow yesterday, just with a hypothetical $500,000 budget, being like, how much garage space can I get in various different states? So there's some debate about James Bond here. So which is your favourite Bond? Sometimes I think you can use this to gauge people's age. For a lot of people. So for me, I mean, it's always been Pierce because like that's kind of the Bond that I grew up with. I do actually have a nice piece of GoldenEye memorabilia next door as well. 350Z guy is after a project car. an MX-5 turbo or supercharged or Rocketeer V6 swap, I'd kind of be tempted with the Rocketeer kit, although they're not doing kits anymore. I think they're only doing turnkey cars. And I totally agree with the comment just made that Dalton was more Bond than the others, but never got the chance to shine. I don't think. I mean, I love License to Kill, great film. There's things to like about the other one, Living Daylights, theme tune. I got pulled over singing The Living Daylights. Would anybody like to hear that story? Because that is a story. I did some other ones the other day. Other what? Stories. It's in the other live stream. Okay. You have reviewed a few electric cars. What are your opinions of cars converted to electric? Would I consider reviewing one if it was offered to you? Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see what that was like. I think that's very interesting. There are some cars out there that I think would totally work as electric. There are other cars that just wouldn't. S2000 electric, I just think it just defeats the point of the car. But oddly then an MX-5 electric I think would work, because in the MX-5 I just don't think the engine is like a star, component or anything like that. Best used hot hatch for around 15k. We've had that question already. Okay. Oh, you know what? Here's one as well. Here's one I meant to ask people about. Is that okay? All right. Simon Middleton has asked what is happening with the car review on film. So I had this genius master plan to shoot a car review on 16mm film, because I used to work in film, love cars, used to shoot lots of films, now I shoot loads of cars. I wanted to do something really unique and really different. And I have this plan, which hasn't been cancelled, it's simply been pushed back along in line with everything else, to shoot a car review, YouTube's first car review on Super 16mm film. I did a little Just Giving page, which exists still, and I will link people to that if anybody is in the mood to help with that. Because I was thinking of talking about it on the channel, but the reality is that there are so many other things going on at the minute, and people need money for so many more serious things, that I just felt like talking at the minute and trying to raise money to shoot a car review on film, which is a complete it's a nonsense thing to do. I just thought that it would seem a little bit in poor taste to kind of do that. But as the question has been asked, there's the Just Giving link, which explains a little bit more about the project. I had a plan, which I might as well tell you all about, at some point, to flog off some of these. So, if anybody is interested in a real, genuine piece of film kit that's a bit interesting, I thought a nicer way to raise some money for my little short film project would be to sell off some of these. These are film magazines. Now, I've actually shown these in a video before, so they're off a camera called a Movie Cam. That was actually a brand. And what they are is, you've probably seen these on top of cameras before, but never quite sort of even thought about what they are. So you used to store the film in here, and it would go through and back up. And these are very, very clever. So they are displacement magazines. So a piece of film, so I'm just going to reach out a shot and grab something even more interesting. So this is the top of a 400-foot can of film. So film typically comes in two lengths, 400 foot and 1,000 foot. That's for 35mm. In 16mm, generally you only get 400 foot. You used to get 100 foot. So this is 400 feet of 35mm film. It lasts just over 4 minutes, depending on frame rate and various different other things. But average 4 minutes or so. That would cost you for that would cost you about 150 quid. Johnny, I bought all of this stuff from Ari Media. So this, which if someone wants to buy this off me, I would sell it, but the price would be high. This is a genuine used film can from Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and it doesn't say Star Wars: The Force Awakens on it because these things have working titles, and that is the working title of Star Wars: The Force Awakens. But what I was talking about is I was thinking of flogging these things off for like, say, I don't know, 50 quid or something a go, just to try and raise some money for my film project. I've got about 8 of them sitting around. Once upon a time, these costs about, they were £8,000 to £10,000. I mean, seriously, these were a fortune, and I have been using the boxes to keep my speakers up, to raise my speakers in my lounge. So yes, if anybody wants to help me shoot a film, and have a piece of actual real film history, I can't tell you what these have been used on, but they will have been used on some actual proper genuine Hollywood films. They're beautifully made. They're very, very nice. They used to do these in carbon fibre as well. So yeah, they're a lovely, lovely thing. So back to some questions. A good mix of favourite Bonds. Okay. Let me see. What do we got? Okay. As a TVR fan, can I give people a clue as to what is coming up on my upcoming videos? So I mentioned that I'm doing a video. I filmed it obviously a little while ago, and after I edited it, I sometimes what I do is when I've done my review, that is when I'll go and watch other people's views on cars. Sometimes we have similar viewpoints. Sometimes they're hilariously different. You know, I have driven some cars where where you drive it and then you see what other people think of it, and you're like, what? The funny ones, of course, are where the car came out 20 years ago and the standards of the time have simply changed. You know, what one day was, a really sporty, stiff suspension is now, really comfortable and reasonable. So I shot this review of a car, and I then went to look for other reviews of this car online, and I could only find reviews of the car either in print, but even in print, they only seem to have driven it on track. It's a made-in-Britain car. The manufacturer still technically exists, but pretty sure they haven't made a car for about 4 years at least. So, that was... so there's a little clue, a little idea as to what might be coming out. Aston Martin Rapide. What is my thoughts on the Aston Martin Rapide? Because you can pick one of those up for relatively buttons. The Rapide is an odd car. I mean, a genuinely bizarre car. I haven't driven one, but I have sat in one. I wasn't going anywhere, but for these things, you don't really... oh my God, I just sent a question from Chris McIntosh. Oh, no. The problem with the Rapide is it's not as sporty as all the other Astons. It's very big still. It doesn't look as good as the other Astons, at least not from the side, because it's been extended out. It's nowhere near as comfortable as S-Class, 7 Series. It's got a bit more room in it than, say, a Continental GT in the back, or a Jag XK or something. Not massive. I mean, you will fit in the back. I fit in the back. But it's, it's kind of like, the roof is like there, and you're like, ah! So there's that. And it just feels like an oddball car. For 30 grand, the S-Class you could buy for the same money would probably be faster and more luxurious and cheaper to run. Charlie has sent me £5 for Pepsi Max and has given me a question. So I will have a sip of Pepsi Max and I will answer your question. Gun to my head. Good start. You have to buy a modern car and a classic car, and I've got to spend at least £1 million on each. Do you know what I saw
just driving through town the other day, popped to the shops, I saw a 918 Spider. White one, roof down, guy just happy as Larry. And it's like, what? Like that, I have never ever seen a 918 Spider in motion. I've seen a bunch of them sat around dealers and things, but never ever in motion. That was quite a moment. That was really, really crazy. Classic car, but a classic car I've got to spend at least $1 million on. All right, Charlie, where does a Zonda sit? Because they're silly money now, but is that modern, or is it classic, or is it in this really weird no man's land? You see, I wouldn't go for something like a DB5. I just don't. If a DB5 was 100 grand and I had 100 grand, I wouldn't buy a DB5. I know it's sacrilege. I much prefer the later Vantages, if anything else. So Mike said the F40. I actually prefer the F50. I suspect the F50 could be the better car to drive. It's always Okay, so Charlie, so Chelsea said about Diablo, but Diablos aren't £1 million. I'm going to say I'll have the Zonda as the modern car, and as the classic car. This is a really difficult question. You're getting your £5 worth of thought. The hamster is going round here like crazy. Oh, actually, as is a dream thing, McLaren F1 LM. Now the F1 is a very odd car for me because the standard F1 I don't like the looks of. From the front it looks pretty good, but from the kind of side, it just looks a bit odd because it's got such a short rear end. It just seems like it's unfinished. It just seems like they kind of got most of the way through the sketch and then had to go home really, really quickly. But the LM, it's sexy papaya orange, lovely colour, but it's got a little wing at the back, and for some reason, just the little wing on it makes it. And they're epic and they're cool and they're crazy and they're the sort of car that billionaires dream of being able to own. So yeah. If I had to explain to an American the significance of the name British Leyland, how would you do it? I would use one word, and I would use the word Edsel. Hopefully that would sort of convey to an American quite what British Leyland is. I mean, I sell British Leyland short, and other people, Ahubna, Stefan, I Drive a Classic, to name but a couple, I think they do a much better job of singing the praises of British Leyland than I ever could. Would I buy a Lotus again after my poor experience with them? I kind of would, because I just loved the experience. I loved the ownership. I loved the car. I loved driving it. I know that I was very unlucky with mine, and I would have no illusions that if I bought another Lotus, and it probably would be another Evora or an Esprit, I think it'll be troublesome. Rob, I have no idea who Gav is. If he's got a McLaren F1 that I can film with, obviously I'd love to do that. Okay, let's have a look. What else have we got? Okay, so this is... How would I explain Edsel to somebody? Well, the Edsel is the car that inspired the Homer from The Simpsons. The Edsel is what happens when you think you've done marketing research and you haven't at all. You've just told people what they want. It doesn't always work. Geely and Lotus, I I think it's a good combination. I mean, Lotus desperately needed cash. I don't think that the Evija is the correct car for them to have come out with. Oh, Mike sent me a fiver with no question, just supported the channel. That's very kind. I have to say, just going off on a tangent here. I've done a few things recently, so I haven't been pushing the Patreon. I removed the Patreon message from the videos because with things being really tough, I didn't want to be pushing along. Oh, Ratarossa has just joined the chat to say hi. If you haven't checked him out already, he is the most unusual of Ferrari owners because he actually works on his own cars. So if you want to see a really cool, down-to-earth, decent guy that also has a collection of Ferraris, then check his channel out. I highly recommend it. And if you forget, at some point soon, when we're allowed to do things, we will we'll be doing more. My favourite Lotus crossover, e.g. the Carlton. Well, I guess it could be the Carlton. I mean, I quite like the Carlton. I didn't love it. It's not going to be the Proton Satria. That's for sure. Okay. Charlie, have I lost lots of hats or just bought too many hooks? No. The hats are all down here because at some point I am going to record a video. It might even be the subject of the next live stream. But the thing with the live streams is that the questions keep coming in and so things keep flowing, which is lovely. But I intend to record a video explaining the provenance of all the hats, which includes such gems as this one. I honestly, childhood dream fulfilled right here. F1LM on the driveway and a head crab plushie. That's proper childhood stuff. This is also equally important. When I went to Buffalo, New York, I went to Duff's Famous Wings. I was originally going to go to the Anchor Bar, which is the birthplace of the Buffalo Wing, but I was instead told by the local Buffalo resident, do I want to go to the original, or do I want to go to the best? Scott of Ratarossa fame has asked a very interesting question. Now, if I got a Ferrari, which one could you most picture me in? Scott's being cheeky here because me and Scott have spoken quite a bit about Ferraris, so he knows exactly which ones I like, but nobody else does because I haven't. I haven't spoke about it on the channel, but I do look at the classifieds quite a bit. Actually, I tell you another car. I look at all sorts of random stuff. Hello, Islandi? I don't know. I tell you what, I have developed an unusual lusting for recently, and I know completely that it would be a terrible idea. That hasn't stopped me wanting it. Is the Maserati Gran Turismo MC Stradale. There's a really nice one up for sale at the minute at Aston Martin Newcastle. And it is a beautiful, like, triple layer red paint. The interiors, those things look stunning. The cars are gorgeous. I mean, they make a really lovely sound. So GTC4 Lusso is a very cool car, and frustratingly, in 4 days, I was supposed to be picking up a GTC4 Lusso from Ferrari. Someone's asked, is that KISS memorabilia hanging on your door? Well, the bag, amazingly you spotted that. Yes, the bag does say KISS on it, but it's not from a KISS concert. It's actually from an ice hockey game because they are promoting an upcoming KISS concert on the bag. I think. See, I do have a thing for the Ferrari V12s. I'm not a fan of the Testarossa. The 308 is a cool car. Okay, so Matt asks what's actually happening with the reviews. So long story short, I've been very lucky in that I did a huge amount of filming in advance. So I have content coming out. I've got content filmed, edited, uploaded until June the 2nd or thereabouts. Most of that is, so there are what's the date today? The 26th. So yeah, Defender video came out today. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 10 car reviews that are filmed, edited, and shot. That's not including the 9/11 week stuff that I'd shot, of which there are 3 or 4 videos. So there's, plenty of content coming out between now and the end of May. And I'm just adding stuff in the middle because I know that there's an appetite for the content at the minute. That's why I'm doing the live streams and stuff like that. Okay. All right. So let's look at more Ferrari stuff. Okay. All right. Scott's been very generous and reasonable and said, let's say a sub £100,000 budget for Ferraris. I mean, the 430 is actually quite a cool car. I do like them. I actually want to try a 430 with the F1 box because I've been very lucky in the all of the Ferraris I've driven, with the exception of the Portofino, have been manual. And I know, and this is a controversial point, I know that Scott claims he actually prefers the F1 box. I don't know whether it's some sort of specific madness that's stricken him, but he claims that that is actually his preference. So I look forward, Scott, to getting over there and checking out. Yeah. Oh, picture this. You're driving on a road. This sounds like the opening to Blade Runner, doesn't it? This is a question from Shilty. Picture this. You're driving on a road. What song are you listening to? Where are you? What car are you driving? Okay. So, I don't know whether I actually filmed any of this or not. But when I did the RS6 video, in Germany, RS6 launch, James and I, we had a couple of opportunities on the autobahn to stretch the car's legs, and I had my phone connected via Bluetooth, so I could control it by voice. I did 174 mile an hour on the autobahn, which was the car's maximum speed, and we were playing Push It to the Limit from Scarface. And I mean, yeah, it was the most brilliant experience. Just, absolutely pinned. Push it to the limit. Loved it. Was so much fun. Absolutely just brilliant. You get moments like that. You get moments like that in life, where the stars align, everything is right, and that was definitely one of them. I've said before what I used to do and what I still do is when I buy cars. I mean, certainly in the old days, I used to burn a CD for them. So I for my 330 Club Sport, I working for the weekend. Everybody's working for the weekend. Don't worry, I will not be doing a karaoke channel. Top 3 cars I would enter in a demolition derby. 3 Abarth 595s. I'm gonna run if any of you have got an Abarth. Okay, so here's a question, and actually a couple of people have actually asked me this question, and it's a very, very good, question. do I think that premium brands building SUVs devalues the brand? I think the funniest one is the Rolls Royce, the Cullinan or the Cullinan or whatever you want to call it. Because if you actually look at it, normal Rolls Royces are huge anyway. I mean, they're massive. Like my 7 Series is, if you look at it on its own, it looks like a normal sized car. But it's big. It's really big. And so having a Rolls Royce that's just taller just seems to defeat the point. I also don't think Rolls Royces are worth the money. This might be the subject of another video, but yeah, I think that Bentleys are the Bentleys are they feel to me like the more quality products. They feel to me like the more artisan products, whereas the Rolls Royces have something have something about them that just feels a little bit artificial. Like the chrome is plastic, stuff in them just feels a little bit cheap. All that sort of stuff. Okay. Neil wants to know about the time that I was pulled over while I was singing to the Bond theme. Okay. Take you all back to about VXR Bandit wants some mentions for NHS workers, and seeing as my sister is an NHS worker and my girlfriend's sister is an NHS worker, of course I have the greatest of appreciation for what they do, and as this is a global platform, that goes the same for all of the frontline workers all around the world. They are currently doing an amazing job in rubbish conditions. So yeah, it's about 7 or 8 years ago. I was working on a World War II horror film, low budget feature film. Actually, one of my favourite projects that I ever worked on. And the crew. So we were working 6-day weeks. So film was, you leave at like 8 in the morning. You're not back till like 6, 7 in the evening. 6-day weeks, and I was shooting film, and also I was doing data logging, so I was downloading all the footage. We're generating hundreds of gigabytes every day of footage, and every weekend, all the crew went out to the pub and whatever, and they all wanted me to go along. And I'm teetotal, and I've no interest in paying £5 for a pint of Diet Coke. And I was staying at the Travel Lodge in Penrith. A very, very luxurious venue. Anyway, every bleeding weekend they wanted me to come out with them. And after 4 weekends, they ground me down and I said, okay, I will come out with you. We'd had a decent week that week. We're getting towards the end of the film. And it was our last week staying in that particular location. So I said, okay, let's, I'll come with you for a couple of drinks or whatever. We went out. We had a few drinks. Crew were all getting a little bit merry. We introduced our AD, who was called Alice, and she was Italian, to the classic living next door to Alice. And then they all decide they're going to head off to the club. Now, I draw the line at the club. I have a thing with my ear that basically, long story short, means that if I go somewhere that's too noisy for a too sustained a period, I run the risk of going deaf. So clubs are not the sort of place that I like to be. I then said, right, thanks guys, I had a drink with you. You've seen me out having a drink. I'm going to go home. The sound guy said, yeah, I don't fancy the club either. Can you give me a lift back to the hotel? Yes, of course I can. Sure, no problem. So we're driving along. Hello, South Africa. We're driving along, and we've got my 80s CD going, and he's flicking through, and on comes the theme tune from The Living Daylights. And we're having a right old sing-song, and I'm enjoying life, and I'm in my car, I'm in my E46 330ci Club Sport 2005 WJ05 HEV, still on the road, 190-something thousand miles on it. Driving along, I whip around this roundabout, zoom, doing about 60, 70 mile an hour, up the A road, up the main road, oh, the living daylights, whoa, flashing lights. And there's that moment where you're like, oh, there's flashing lights there. You're like, have they just got a call, or is it me they want? And then you're like, give it 5 seconds, It's me that they want. Okay, now at this time, I was about 100 meters from the entrance to the hotel. And the issue that I was having with that car, I'd had a couple of problems with the car. On the way up to the film shoot, I had hit either a dead rabbit or a bit of roadkill or something. Thanks, Scott. Bye bye. Yeah, go look after the kids. Yeah, so I had hit some piece of roadkill on the way up, and the under tray of the car was kind of hanging down, just sort of held on by a few cable ties, because as we only had Sundays off, there were no garages I could take it to get fixed, and the battery on the car was dying. You know, if you didn't get it started the first couple of times, it just wasn't starting. So I thought, right, I don't want to run the risk of the car stopping and not starting again. I pull into the hotel car park and stop. And the copper followed me into the hotel car park, and I left the car running because I thought I do not want to stop it and start it again and move it 50 yards because it's probably not going to start in the morning. So a copper walks up to the window, roll down window, and he looks at me and he says, "Good evening, sir. You know, where are you headed?" And I said, "Well, actually, I'm headed to the hotel here." "Okay, where have you just been?" "The pub." "Okay, so get out of the car." "All right, fine. And of course, at this point, I'm quite relaxed because I know I haven't had anything to drink. A lot of my friends tried to persuade me to have something to drink, and I said no because I knew that something like this might happen. So at this point in time, I was feeling very, very glad I politely declined that Jaeger bomb. Because you know what it's like. You get pulled over by a cop and you say, "But I never drink, officer, apart from this one time," they would not ever believe you. So I get in the back of the police car. Of course, first thing they want to know is why the hell am I 200 miles from home? Then I tell them I'm making a film. Start going through things, insurance details, all that sort of stuff, and everything is all seeming good. Everything's all decent. Everything's lining up. And then the coppers are quite friendly. I've never personally had any issues with the police ever, so they were all very nice and friendly. I had a bit of a laugh with them. The week before, you can date this, the week before I'd gone to see Iron Man 3, so that's exactly when it was. I'd gone to see Iron Man 3 in Carlisle, had a bit of a laugh about Carlisle, and you know how obviously it's a little bit more, interesting a place to be at night than quiet old Penrith. And they had a laugh and everything. And the copper gets the breathalyzer kit out, and he looks at me, and he says, "You've told me you've been to the pub, but I can't smell any alcohol or anything like that." And he's like, "When did you last have a drink?" And I just sort of said, "Ooh, I think I made like a chicken in white wine like about 4 months ago, something like that." He just laughed and he just said, "Yeah, you're all right, mate. You know, head on." I mean, I was so worried because I thought, was I speeding, which I wasn't. You know, I was sure that I was in a national speed limit when I was having fun on the roundabout. Or my bigger worry was like with stuff hanging off the bottom of the car. I was like, "Oh no, don't tell me something's just fallen off my car." The guy was totally chill, totally easygoing, really nice, really kind, and just like, and I was gutted. I was absolutely gutted because I love watching the motorway cop programs. So I was like, "Oh yeah, I know what to do. You got to breathe in till it goes beep or whatever and all that sort of stuff." I was so disappointed that I didn't get to do the breathalyzer and everything. I was like, "Oh no," because I was quite enjoying it. I thought it was like a bit like Cops Live, that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's the true story of how I got pulled over while I was singing to the Living Daylights. I don't get pulled over very often, but when I do, it always seems to be for an odd and interesting reason. Okay, so more questions. Okay. Okay, there was some interesting stuff about Formula One. So I talked a little bit a while ago about did I talk about Formula One stuff? Anyway, I did a video a few years ago about Classic Team Lotus, and one of the interesting things about Formula One cars. So if you haven't seen that video, it's a really nice little video. Is that they said any Formula One car that's kind of like pre-early 90s, like pre-1990, they're not that expensive to run. I think it's something like, was it 50 quid a mile or something like that? You know, like, I mean, so it's not cheap. It's not, don't be under any illusion that it's a cheap hobby. But, you know, for the average season of racing for these classic F1 guys, you're talking something like £250,000. But the fact is, with an old, you know, if you've got Jim Clark's old F1 car, technically speaking, you need like one guy to run it, and he can do it. The moment you get beyond the 1990s, you have a level of technology and sophistication in these cars that you genuinely need a team of people just to start the car, and the costs spiral rapidly. Okay, so Spanish John asks, "Do I have points on my license?" No, I don't, and trying to keep it that way. Kind of easy at the minute, it must be said. A Series 1 Elise under £10,000. Is it worth the risk? If it's a straight car and it's got no accident damage, yeah, probably. But don't buy it from TVR Glen or TVR Dean or whatever. Okay. What have we got? Someone's talking about cheap McLarens. I mean, a 570S for 70 grand is kind of happening. I mean, I know someone that picked one up for less than 80, and that was a nice car. There will be somewhere out there someone that will sell you a 570S for 70 grand. I guarantee it. They may be hard to find, but they will be out there. If they're not out there now, by next year, they definitely. I mean, they'll be advertising. They'll be advertising for that by the end of this year, I suspect. Would I do a consultation type thing if you were thinking of getting a Series 1 Elise? No. The only reason I say that, Callum, is because I am absolutely not expert in the Series 1 Elise. Happily come along if it was somewhere convenient for me to go to, and give you some moral support and give it a look over. But I just don't know the models that well. I really, really don't. Okay, what else? What flappy paddle gearboxes can compare to PDK? Some of the ZF8 speeds are actually really good. Alfa Romeo did a very good job of it. BMW tend to do a very good job of it. Audi less so, but the Audi's own dual clutch is extremely good. Ferrari's dual clutch is extremely good as well, just as good as the PDK. Okay. What I reckon is more reliable, an Evora or a newer shape Elise? Good question. It's a bit random, really, with the Lotus. I mean, you could say the Elise because it's got less to go wrong, but that doesn't stop it. You could say the Evora because it's a newer car and a newer platform and all that. I mean, the Evora costs a little bit more to run and all that jazz. When I order my Aston Martin, will I go along and film it being built? It would be nice, wouldn't it? I mean, I would love to be able to do that one day. You know, I mean, A, have enough money to order something like an Aston Martin brand new, and B, being invited to go along and film it and all that jazz. My thoughts on the 765 LT. I'm sure it's a very fast, lovely and impressive car, but I personally would not have one over a 720. I love the 720, and I did not at any point think that it wasn't fast enough because it's obscenely quick anyway. I'd be interested to see what the 765 sounds like, because they say they've improved the noise out of it, because it's historically a real McLaren weakness. So I would love to know about that. I've been given a place in the Gumball Rally. What car would I choose? I would want to choose something really like different or unusual. Maybe a DeLorean. I think that'd be fun. I mean, that would be a real challenge as well. Get a DeLorean to finish that thing. How will the value of old TVRs be affected by the new company? I don't think they really will be that much. If TVR even manage to build a car, I mean, I'm not sure that they will. So yeah. Okay. Okay, so Callum's asked, and this is a question that's actually been asked about, when I say Ferrari are giving me a car, is it a complicated process or is it simple? Are there strict rules? I mean, Ferrari are the only company that make me sign like a really detailed piece of paper when I take the car. You have to be, they are very clear as to what they expect you to do and not do. None of that relates to your opinion on the car. They don't do that. They don't tell you, you must have a good opinion of the car. None of this. There's never even the slightest hint that, that has to be the case. Anything like that. But yeah, if Ferrari like you and they want to give you a car, it's just as easy to get a press vehicle out of them as any other manufacturer. It's just they have a lot less press vehicles. Ferrari are not a particularly big company. The press department is not particularly big. The press fleet is not particularly big. It's not like, Kia's press fleet is probably something like 20 or 30 times the size of Ferrari's, to give you a rough idea. Okay. So Kevin is thinking about replacing the plastic paddles on his M2 comp for quality metal ones and to change the steering wheel for an Alcantara one. I keep thinking about touch points, waste or not. No, absolutely not waste. The stuff you touch in the car, the seats, the steering wheel, the pedals, all that stuff, that has to be right. That has to be to your taste. It's very, very important, especially in a sporty car like the M2. I personally don't like Alcantara wheels, but the thing is, if you do, go for that. And to get the paddles nicer and better and more tactile, definitely do that. Who has the best heritage fleet that I know of? In the UK, Audi. VW's isn't anywhere near as good, neither Seat or Skoda's, so they're the best in VAG group. I don't know about BMW's heritage fleet. I know they've got one. Actually, Ford's heritage fleet is probably the biggest and best, but it's not one that I've had access to. Theirs is pretty crazy. Best first supercar, Audi R8, V8, done. Your opinion on best electric car on the market that's not a Tesla? The Kia Niro was very good. Very, very good car. How long could I park my Evora without charging it? Like 2 weeks? Random question. There you go. Wouldn't rely on it to last any longer than that. And I did have quick charge points wired into it for a good reason. And getting into the boot, if it's flat, is a pain in the arse. I have the chance to rent a Carrera S997 for a day. Worth it or not? If it's a car you've lusted after and a car that you're not going to have a go to drive by any other means and you've got some good roads to enjoy it on, yes, do it. Lovely cars. Great things. Okay, do JLR ever let cars out of their museum? Actually, in their museum's brilliant as well, now I think about it. Their museum's certainly bigger than the Audi one. A lot of it's Defenders, so I just ignore it. But they have some really genuinely cool stuff. They've got stuff dating back to, when Jaguar was called SS cars and all that stuff. Am I going to test the BMW Z4M? I have already done a review of the Z4M Coupe. And I will do a video on the Roadster when I can. So yeah, what's my opinion on Peugeot at the minute? I really never know what Peugeot are doing. I would have to look at their lineup to know. Because sometimes I see they're putting out amazing stuff, and then other times they just seem to be doing really weird, bizarre stuff. Christopher Richardson wants to know fastest car, press car, or your own. The fastest car I've driven, probably the 720. I would think it's probably the 720. I don't know if I've driven anything that's more powerful than that. Have I driven anything that's 800 horsepower? I don't think I have. Tommy Carradis, would I review a classic Mini? Yes, I have already, but the video hasn't come out yet. And it should be out at the end of May. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left before my camera battery dies. So, funniest story I've had with a press car. Okay. So this is in a video that nobody watched. I got invited to the launch of the new Kia Ceed and Pro Ceed in Barcelona. And this was with Laurie and myself. So most people were getting flown out there and then flown back the next day. And we said, look, we don't think we have enough time. Is there a way we can, because the idea was you were going to follow a plan. You land off the plane, you do this car, then you have lunch, then you do this car, then you come to a hotel, and you do this car, then you go back. And we said, look, we really would like to spend a little bit more time with the car, do some filming and stuff. So they actually said to us, tell you what, why don't you come out and we'll fly you out. You can have the car, pick whichever one you want, and you can drive it back, and then keep it for a week. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So that was fantastic. And we drove it from Barcelona up into France and back. And we found the most amazing driving road. And we stopped on the Spanish-French border. And we stopped, and I thought the car was broke. That's what I thought. Because this thing was shaking around like nobody's business. I mean, the whole car was like, doing that. We realised it was the wind. The wind was crazy. And the wind was so strong, Laurie couldn't get out the car. He could not do it. Poor guy was like, come on. I was no help. I was no help whatsoever. I was absolutely wet myself. I thought it was the funniest thing. Of course, I then had to get out the car to get a shot of this. But I was worried because I'm on the opposite side of the car. So I don't want to open my door and have the wind rip it off. So I grabbed the door handle, just trying to open the thing and hold on to both hands. And the wind was crazy. And the whole car was sat there going, like one of those silly things, advertised petrol station. I don't know why it was so funny. I lost it. I absolutely lost it. I really, really did. Would I take a Jag XJ220 or the latest F-Type 220? 220 all day long. Most disappointing car I've ever driven. Ooh. That's a really, really, really good question. I'm going to have to think about that one a bit, actually. Maybe the current Audi RS4, because I really love the old one. It didn't work for me at all. just not in the least. So yeah, and I also want to point out the fact that we appear to have a record number of people watching. We've got nearly 400 people watching. So thank you so much to everybody for watching. This is amazing. Actually, I was disappointed with the 440i. It's a very good car, but it's just too big for the roads that I drive on. Have I seen Car Trek? Car Trek being the series that Tyler Hoover from Hoover's Garage, Tavares from Tavares, and Ed Bolian from VinWiki have done, where they had a V12 Vantage, Ferrari 360, and a Gallardo, and they were doing like a Top Gear-esque thing. I actually knew about this before it was published, because when I visited Tavares, the Vantage and the 360 were there. And I have watched about half of it, and I've enjoyed moments and I've not enjoyed others, which, to be fair, probably puts it on about level pegging with new Top Gear for me. What I don't... I didn't like the moments that were very, very clearly scripted, and also where they were trying to literally copy Top Gear. It's very, very all well and fine, and, I am very aware that my journalistic style is heavily influenced by JC, but there are quite a few moments where they just completely copy Top Gear, and also from a camera person perspective, they've put a lot of effort into doing the show, and then there's also quite a few things that they got technically wrong, like their colour grading is all mismatched and all stuff like that. Is it wrong that I sometimes take my son's 2009 Fiat Panda instead of the M2? No. No, it's not. I know someone that used to have a Ferrari and a Porsche 911 and an E-Type on the driveway and still would take the work van places. there's nothing wrong with that at all. I always used to think that the grass was always greener on the other side. You always think, when you've only got access to smaller, cheaper cars and all that stuff, you always think, like, oh, it's be so much better. Oh, what if I had a supercar? What if I had this, that, and the other? I love supercars. I want to own a supercar. It's something I want to do. It's something I want to achieve. But, I can now say, hand on heart, that I have sampled, things from £500 cars to £500,000 cars, and there is not there is no barrier to enjoyment in terms of price. I have had the most hilarious times in cheap, terrible cars. I've done thousands of miles in Reliant Robins, which is a story for another time. And yeah, just the memories and stuff from that is just magical. And it's really, really wonderful. Yes, we hit 400. Yeah, Owen is quite right. We did hit 400 watchers, and then we went down to 390 and 391. It reminds me of the early days of YouTube. Anyone that's done YouTube will know, especially when you're a small channel like sub 1,000. You get so excited because you get to you're like, oh, I've got 199 viewers or 199 subscribers. You're like, oh, this is brilliant. You're like, 200, yes, brilliant. I'm a YouTube millionaire. And then it goes back to 199, and you're like, no, what did I do? Please come back. I'll do anything. I'll say whatever you want. What's the one car I regret selling and why? My 130i, because it was absolutely brilliant in what it did. It was a fantastic spec, and I've never ever seen one even remotely like it for sale since, and I should not have sold it. After lockdown, any car shows planned in the UK? Well, something I wanted to do this year was I really, really wanted to go to more car shows. The simple reason being that I just wanted to talk to people about cars. I don't film at car shows. People don't watch car show videos. The reality is that I would make more make more money doing a live stream. I've earned £10 in this live stream. Thank you very much. People do the you can do the super chat thing on here, and you can send money, which is still blows my mind that people do. I was planning to visit the Festival of Speed this year for the first time. So Bib asks a very, very valid question, which is why have I stopped doing reviews when it's my job? Because what he means is that the current guidelines state, quite the UK guidelines for going outside clearly state that it's, if it's your work and you have to do it outside, that you can do it. Well, the fact is, yes, reviews are my job. They are my work. I probably will be doing some at some point in the next couple of weeks. But when it comes to individual people, individual people's cars for a review, which is the majority of my review stuff, it's not work for them. So I don't want to get people in trouble, by asking them to come, and I wouldn't want to make them feel, uncomfortable, or anything like that. So, plus there is a very big kind of social backlash. I mean, I've already seen so many different comments and things in my videos that were, in some cases, very obviously shot before lockdown, and people still whinging and having a go about stuff being shot during lockdown. So that's kind of unfortunate, and that's so I don't want to court that where I can. The joke being that if I filmed something during lockdown, it isn't going to come out until June, by which time I really hope things are starting to improve here, and so people probably would not ever notice. So yeah, I see a lot of the other guys, Tim and that getting hassle for filming stuff, and the fact is, it is work for him. He is allowed to do it. The way I have personally dealt with it is I have been using I have been using all of the spare time that I've got to edit all of the material I already had, and if the day comes that we are still under lockdown conditions and I have no videos left. Well, I will have to go out and film stuff. I've been doing as much as I can, filming in here, and actually that works quite well because it's some of the most watched content on the channel, and all that sort of jazz. Doing some of these live streams and things works really, really well. People enjoy watching those, so that sort of stuff. Rob Farthing says, "What's my next car?" I don't know. I really, really don't know. Best road trip I've been on. Oh, that's a good question. I did very much enjoy my trip to Scotland with James in the Audi R8. That was a lot of fun. If for no other reason, there was a couple of moments where we parked the car up, and I just looked at it and I was like, "Wow, that's that is a it's a magazine cover. Beautiful supercar, idyllic background." A good question from Owen. Where did my passion for Lotus start? Actually, it's a most unusual story because I didn't really have one. I knew that the Elise was a thing. I knew that the Evora was a thing. I had an M3, and I was looking at upgrading that. I wanted something a little bit more special. I didn't know quite what I wanted. An Evora was on the cards. Originally, it was probably going to be more like an Evora S. I'd never driven a Lotus in my entire life, and I decided that I should go and try one. So I went and drove the Evora S, 2011 in Canyon Red at Stratton Motor Company, and it just blew me away. I'd owned the M3 for something like 6 months at that time, and I'd driven the Evora for something like 60 seconds, and I already had 10 times as much confidence and faith in that car as I ever did in the M3. It just spoke to me so completely and directly, and just from that time, I just had to have one. Stuart wants to know how come I'm teetotal, what the story is behind that. I don't really like to talk about it. All I'll say is that, I was young, I was stupid, and, that polar bear was never the same again. Doug DeMuro or Tyler Hoover? I think Hoovy is more my spirit animal. Have I ever driven an F10 M5? No, I have come close to driving one on a number of occasions, but for various reasons, it's just never quite worked out. Particularly recently, we had, in winter before lockdown, we had bad weather, and it's just not a car, to drive in inclement conditions. Oh, hello, car guys, some fellow YouTubers. Cheers, chaps. Am I tempted to disproportionately court more McLaren controversy given the views and the popularity so far on the channel? An excellent question, I must say. No. I hate doing the McLaren videos. I will be perfectly honest about that. I hate doing them. I made the first one. I made one a year or so ago, which is talking about why McLarens lose £50,000 a year, which was nowhere near as controversial as the most recent ones, which I found very odd because at that point in time I didn't have that much direct experience with McLaren. And then I did the one. So my mate and his dad picked up their cars, and then because of the way that YouTube works, he had the 570 to start off with. Things went wrong. That car then changed into a 600 LT. Now, but because of the way that I worked, I'd filmed the 570 and 720 reviews 2 months before they were going to come out. So on Monday, we had, here's my buddy James's new 570S. And then on Wednesday, we were going to have, here's my buddy James's new 600 LT. And I thought, this situation needs explaining. I need to tell people what happened here. The story also got kind of a bit out of hand. Things didn't go very well with McLaren, various reasons, this, that, and the other. I just seen Dan say he's bought an XKR because of the channel. Great choice. So I put the video out, the original one, literally as an explanation as to how come my friend changed his car so quickly. What happened? Because in reality, it was 2 months, whereas on the YouTube, obviously, it's going to happen over the space of 2 days. that video went a bit nuts, to say the least. And it's interesting as well. A lot of my most popular, most viewed videos are the ones that are, technically the least dull, or the most dull. It's me talking or whatever, like I am now. And the video went crazy. Obviously, the story needed to continue. Part 2 didn't do anywhere near as much as part 1, but that was fine. That was not the intent. The thing that a lot of people forget is this. Everyone looks at the McLaren videos and they go like, "Oh, between the two of them, I've got 1,000,000 views." Oh, you got 1,000,000 views. You only made it for the views. This, that, and the other. And the fact is this: that I think pretty much any YouTuber, certainly any YouTuber the size of mine, if they tell you that they know what's going to be a hit video, they're lying. You just don't know. Every single time you think you've cracked the secret to it, every single time you think you know what's going on, you will be proven wrong. It's simple as that. So I had absolutely no idea. I mean, bearing in mind the collection video, and I thought that would be a more interesting video, father and son collect new McLarens on the same day. The video got something like 3,000 views, it's terrible, terrible views. So there was absolutely zero guarantee that video was ever going to be watched by people on any real meaningful scale. But what I knew was going to happen, the second that video was out in the wild, I was going to be blacklisted from McLaren press cars pretty much forever. And there was a very, very high likelihood that I would wind up with, an angry letter from McLaren, possibly a legally angry letter from McLaren. So I had to be extremely careful in the video. I mean, I was there for pretty much everything that happened, so I wasn't worried about being factually incorrect, and things that happened when I, when I wasn't there, I didn't report on, or I just said, look, I wasn't there for this. So the minute the video came out, there was a huge risk, a huge risk involved in that. Plus, you've got the whole point of like, yeah, it's a pretty controversial video that it goes in on the dealer and the manufacturer, in quite a brutal way, I guess. And I know I made a lot of enemies out of it. And there's always the possibility, of course, that other manufacturers would have seen that video. If you go on my channel, that is the #1 video that's going to come up. I am that guy. I am that guy that did the McLaren video. So there's a very high chance that, they're never going to want to talk to me. And press people move around, So if McLaren's PR guy moves to somewhere else, I'm not getting a look in there. That's just not happening. So, so for that reason, I mean, there will only be, I think, one more video on this McLaren saga, which is the ultimate, the final part 3 to what happened with the 600 LT and the 720, because that story's still not resolved, and it should have been resolved by now, but because of everything that's gone on, it just hasn't been. So I hope, Damien, that has answered your question. Okay. What do we got? Thoughts on the Europa S without having driven one? That's from Brad. Brad, are you talking about the new one or the old one? Because that's important. Okay. What's my opinion on BMW and their rod bearing issues? So you're talking about, E92 M3, E60 M5, E63 M6. Yeah, it's annoying that they've got that issue. It seems to be less of an issue here than in the States. Maybe that's because we drive better. Don't know. Maybe that's because there's less of them here. Who can say? I think it's something you need to be aware of. But you know what? It costs something like 1,500 quid. 1,500 quid to fix that in the M3, and there are cars out there, with much bigger potential issues. Okay, what do we got here? What do I think of MR2s? I quite like them. Never driven the first generation one, but they're quite nice cars. I want to have another go of a third generation one. And I was another thing I was supposed to be doing a 2ZZ swap one, so that would have been fun. Charlie wants to know how am I streaming basically YouTube quality. So I've got this little thing called a cam link down here. which means that it is my main camera connected to YouTube. So you know, I've got the regular. This is the setup that I use for filming. So yeah. Okay, so a lot of people talking about the S2000. And Alex from Carthrottle said the S2000 is the most overrated car he's ever driven, and he called it gutless. What do I think of his conclusion? Honestly, anybody that says they've driven the S2000 and they don't like it and it's gutless and the steering's a bit shit, I totally respect that. I would not argue that opinion at all. And I guess I have the luxury of having multiple cars on the driveway. The S2000 is a car that I'm able to take out when I want. I can be in the mood for it and its charms, and so I can really really get to enjoy it. The modifications I'm making to it are aimed at trying to improve its gutlessness, and it is gutless below 4,000 RPM. There's no two ways around it. So yeah, so that's the plan for that one. Okay. Okay, a Porsche question. 991.1 or 981S or GTS? I would go for a 981. Yeah, I'd go for a 981. Okay. Clio RS 197-200 as a first track car? Yeah. Yeah. Simple as that. I would. Okay. Well, so there's a question about the new release in Exige, but are you talking about cars that are not yet released? Or are you talking about the current, like, third generation cars? Am I ever worried about getting recognised? Yes, that is a concern. So yeah. I take care where I can. Evidently not today. But yeah. So fire the questions through. The camera's still got a little bit more battery. And we got 465 people watching. So thank you very much. You are all amazing. I appreciate it. And if this is your first live stream, I have during lockdown been doing them at 8:15, so just after the clap for our carers thing that we have here, which is on Thursdays. So 8:15 on Thursdays. Any plans to visit Ireland? Yes, I have Irish family. Some of whom are still in Ireland. Yeah. Car guys, why is it a concern? Because people be nuts, basically. Simple as that. Do I think big NA V8s will make a comeback with decreasing petrol prices? No. Because the one thing about decreasing petrol prices is that they will go back up. And it really, really pains me that I have a dirty great big V12 BMW. Petrol is £1 a litre. The car isn't here and I'm not allowed to drive it for the most time anyway. Very upset about that. What are my thoughts on the Porsche Classic providing a new infotainment system for the 986, 996, and others? I mean, to be fair, like for the 996, you could just put a head unit in them anyway. I'm not sure anyone's really worried about ruining the interior of a 996. Porsche did that already. Have I ever been attacked by an owner whilst reviewing their car? I don't think so. I mean, one of the reasons I'm glad that most of the time the owner is with me is that when they see the review, there's not really a surprise about what I say. Usually, the owners are more harsh on their cars than I am. You see, because the owners have had them for so long that they've been able to develop a dislike for certain quirks and things like that. So, they often have more against them than I do. Generally, I do hate it when owners turn up for a review and then they tell me all these things about the car they don't like, and it's like, I wish you hadn't told me that, because now I'm going to be driving it thinking, like, is that a bit noisy there, actually? Like, I don't know. Do I think rotary engines will ever make a comeback? It seems unlikely. Thoughts on the SL55 versus the Jaguar XKR? Good question. If you want to cruise in luxury, SL. If you want to have a sportier car, Jag. That's generally, I think, the thing. How do I feel on reviewing a Maserati Gran Turismo S? Yes, I desperately, desperately want to drive a Gran Turismo S. Okay, another good one actually from the car guys. You're on fire with the questions this evening, guys. Favorite TV film car that I'd like to drive, and this I'm gonna go for an oddball one, and it's a car that I wanted to film for the channel and I couldn't. I was somewhere else filming. I was at JLR's heritage site, and they had the CX-75 from Spectre. That was cool. That was really, really cool. So yeah. So the General Lee's quite a fun car, I guess. Probably not that pleasant to drive. I guess, you know, Mad Max's V8 Interceptor would be a bit of a laugh as well. So yeah, but anyway, my battery appears to be running low, so I am afraid that at that point I will have to leave all 461 of you. So I'm very sorry about that. I hope that many of you will rejoin me next Thursday, 8:15 GMT. Appreciate you all joining me. And yeah, see you all soon. Bye bye.